Hello, welcome to Mike's Mets Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Bishoda. Happy Tuesday to you, although we are recording this on a Sunday. This is also our first video podcast, so hello, welcome. Um, we are now counting down to the end of the Mets season. They have been officially eliminated from postseason contention. Not that that was a surprise to anybody. We knew this was coming for many weeks and months. It's been coming for a long time, and we knew the expectation was this team was supposed to go to the postseason. There was a lot of people anticipating a postseason run at the beginning of the season. A lot of things went wrong, and now it's time to sort of digest what exactly is going on. So I was going to wait till the end of the year, but because we're pushing up on it, and because of the elimination from postseason contention last week, I wanted to kind of go over the state of the Mets roster and see what we have and what we can expect to be on the team in 2024. That's 2024. I think I put in an extra 20 in there, but so we wanted to go over that group. So I took the liberty of building a depth chart that we can see here. It's just to see what exactly we're talking about. So, for anybody who's listening and not watching on YouTube, what we're looking at right now is a depth chart of the Mets 2023 roster, and we're going to look through and see what exactly is going to be on the team still in the following weeks and months in the off season of 2024. The Mets are going to get cracking pretty soon. They have hired their president of baseball operations, and they're going to let him roll with it and see what he can do to sort of not only stabilize the Mets big league team, but also the Mets organization entirely. So that includes the farm system. He's going to have to go through with a fine tooth comb and see what exactly needs to stay, what needs to go. And he's going to bring his vision for the Mets organization going forward. So looking at this team, I put down asterisks next to any players who have are current or on the final year of their contract, are arbitration eligible, or have a option on their contract. So starting first, I wanted to talk about we have Carlos Carrasco, who has missed the last couple weeks, months. I forget how long exactly he's been out, but he hasn't been missed, at least by me. So Carlos Carrasco, this was his final year on his contract. Originally signed with Cleveland when they were still the Indians, back a long time ago, and the Mets had enacted his team option for 2023, just to see if they could get a little bit more out of him. Ultimately, they did not get really anything out of Carrasco, which is discouraging, but that's just the way it goes. What we have left here is a Carrasco who is not going to be coming back. Let's say that. So he is proven without a shadow of a doubt that he is no longer a big league starter. Now, I'm not saying he's completely done. He may come back on another team, trying to catch on with another team. Who knows really exactly with Carrasco? He has had a checkered history. We don't really know exactly with his health what kind of state he's in. I don't think he's going to retire, but this is definitely his last year with New York. So they have to go on and move on to better options. And honestly, if his contract, his option had not been so high in terms of salary, I think he would have been jettisoned with a lot of other players that were on this team at the All Star break. But ultimately, we saw Carrasco pitch his final year. He's gone, so let's go ahead and take him out of the depth chart. So goodbye, Carlos Carrasco, and let's move on to the other two starters who currently have our contract status up in the air. So we have Kodai Senga and Jose Quintana. They're sticking around, but Joey Lucchesi and David Peterson are the two lefties who are arbitration eligible. My thinking is that both Lucchesi and Peterson will be with the team in 2024. Lucchesi's shown them a lot in terms of his performance in this kind of lost season. He's been something of a hidden treasure. Treasure is probably a strong word. He's been pretty tolerable for them for the most part, and hasn't had nearly the run of issues that David Peterson has. David Peterson's kind of a wild card. We don't really know what kind of Peterson you're going to be getting on a start by start basis. So you are kind of running a risk with him as a part of your rotation. However, as a fill-in starter, I think there is potential. I always look back to that 2022 season. He did such a good job, and and I don't know what happened to him in 2023, but it was very discouraging to see. So both those two will be back again. Um, any players that are on this depth chart that don't have asterisks next to their name, it's because they are on minor league contracts or they're not currently arbitration eligible. So it's a likelihood that they're going to be back or they won't be back in the case of a couple of these players. But I didn't bother to put them under asterisks because it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that they probably will be resigned by the Mets unless they've been really bad this year. Um, so moving away from the starting rotation, I wanted to go down to the bullpen. There's a lot of players that are currently eligible to be gone. Brooks Raley is gonna. I want to talk about first. Raley has a team option for 2024. The Mets are going to enact that, even though he is one of the few Mets that has only 1 year left on this contract. I don't see them trading him in the offseason. In any case, they are going to enact his option, even if they do plan on trading him. But I do think that Brooks Raley will be around in 2024. This is about sort of reestablishing that bullpen. They do not have a lot of tolerable relievers. He is by far one of their best relievers, even though his performance has been somewhat up and down this season. He has definitely been leaned on by Buck Showalter to kind of stabilize that bullpen. Same goes for Adam Ottavino, who doesn't have a team option but does have a player option, and Ottavino is going to be an interesting case also. Ottavino should resign at his age, and given the state of the bullpen markets in the off seasons past, it's unlikely that he's going to get a higher contract than what he is currently owed for 2024. So he is owed, I believe it is 7 or 8 million, I believe. Hang on. No, it's actually 6.75 million he's owed for 2024. So it's unlikely he's going to get higher than that, given his age. I just see him coming back as well. So um, if you have a healthy Edwin Diaz and then Brooks Raley and Vino, then this bullpen actually starts to look pretty good at the very top. After that, it gets a little tricky. Drew Smith and Trevor Gott are both arbitration eligible. Drew Smith a bad year. Same for Trevor Gott. Both these guys really need to kind of come back and refocus. That being said, again, they don't really have a lot of better options like on the board, and I would look at that bullpen and say like, okay, Drew Smith and Trevor Gott, like they at least are. There's a little bit of something. They just need to get a little bit more consistent in terms of their performances, but they are not elite relievers by far, very far from it. But they could make up the backbone of that middle relief section of that bullpen. And truthfully, they're in positions that they shouldn't be in. They're really no better than sixth or seventh inning relievers, and trying to lead on them to do even more than that is just a mistake waiting to happen. So I do think they will be back. Okay, so Omar Narvaez, catcher, they brought him in to sort of be the building block in between, really sort of the passing off point, the relay, if you will, to Francisco Alvarez. Narvaez ultimately did not really play much this year, and when he was playing, meaning when he was healthy, you didn't see him a lot. He was pretty bad for the most part, and Narvaez really only has just been starting in just periods where Alvarez needs to take a break. Buck's been pretty good about doing that. So when you have seen him on the field, he's just not really hitting. Pretty surprising, seeing he's for his career he's been pretty good at it. But he has a player option for 2024. He absolutely should take it because declining his player option, even though he's probably looking for more playing time, he has not really shown that much in 2023. So but he should definitely take that player option, come back, and whatever the Mets want to do with him after that player option has been enacted, that's their choice. I think they keep him around. Narvaez is, for his history, has been pretty good, and taking this as like sort of like an outlier season, he was hurt for pretty much the first half of the season. I would guess that it's probably a good idea to kind of take a gamble on him and at least have a pretty good backup historically behind Alvarez, just in case Alvarez needs any time off due to hopefully no injuries. Moving on, designated hitter Daniel Vogelback. He's arbitration eligible. Goodbye. So Daniel Vogelback, you really got to part ways with him at this point. It's been a really tough stretch for him. I had outlined in my last episode about one of the worst acquisitions by Billy Epler. They brought him in trade deadline last season. He did not do much last season or this season. He's, I think, a great teammate. He's a good guy, not hidden, and particularly in light of Mark Vientos' latest like hot stretch where he's just been homering like crazy. You take him out of that position. I think keep Vientos in there as the primary DH, at least against left-hand pitching. If you want to do a platoon with Vientos, that's fine. Vientos not arbitration eligible as of yet, but I fully expect Vientos to be around on the Mets team at the start of 2024, just because on the back of this great run he's been having, where all of a sudden people are like, "Oh yeah, Mark Vientos, good hitter." He has stretches. He has stretches. I'm glad he's been getting more consistent playing time, and he's been able to sort of thrive a little bit more. Um, does that translate to a full 2024 season? Remains to be seen. But I like him in a better. I feel more confident with Vientos than I do Vogelbach, which is funny to say, but I just do. Um, Moving on to first base. Pete Alonso is arbitration eligible. This is going to be the major storyline of the Mets offseason, besides courting various free agents and trying to trade potentially for other players. It's going to be about the re-signing of Pete Alonso, and the Mets dug themselves a pretty big hole in terms of the leaks that were coming out of their camp about them moving potentially on Alonso, trading him at midseason. There's a huge blowback. Pretty much everybody said a terrible idea. Alonso has had, let's not say it was a perfect year, but he has been one of the best players on this team, and that's not really saying that much, but he has been a very important focus. He's been, I think, one of the premier power hitters of the last 5 years. You keep this guy in a lineup, and you make sure to pay him, and pay him soon. We don't really need this dragging over another off season or another season, and having that hanging over everybody's head. Get it done. Pay the guy what he's worth, and not a cent less. Make it so that you can see that this guy is not only celebrated by the Mets fans, but also the Mets organization as the player he should be. And I want him to break certain Met records that have been in place for a long time. So I'd like him to do that. They need a homegrown guy to stick around and do what he's supposed to do. Speaking of homegrown guys, Ronnie Mauricio, who's been taking over second base primarily, but although we have seen him play a little bit of third, I'm expecting he's going to start the season at second base in 2024, barring any kind of trade move that the Mets make. Mauricio, it's been an interesting a cup of coffee that he's gotten at the start of the month. Red hot. He is tailed off slightly over the last week or so, where he's starting to get into his old habits of striking out a lot more and kind of letting it hang over his head. And that's been unfortunate to see, because I think Mauricio is super talented, a lot of power, and something that has not really been showcased that much, even after that first home run that he hit. That was just an absolute blast. He has not been seen. He has not really been seen that much since then from the batter's box. He's just been pulling out some hits, but largely has not looked the same way he did in AAA. And it's unfortunate that he's starting to get into those bad habits of striking out once more. Francisco Lindor at shortstop has been incredible. There's obviously nothing really to talk about in terms of Lindor at short. He's been the Mets' best player of the season. I don't think that's really a surprise. He's been had definitely his cold stretches at the beginning of the year, but unquestionably he's been the Mets MVP this entire season. Their best two-way player, both offensively and defensively. He's also been flashing a lot of stolen bases this year. He's taking full advantage of the new rules and the new bases, and I'm fully enjoying Lindor this season. Nobody should have anything bad to say about Lindor and his performance. He's been one of the few bright spots. Brett Baty, definitely not been one of the Mets' few bright spots. Excuse me. So Brett Baty has had a rough go, I would say, to say the least. I've talked about it several times. He is not just diminished offensively, but also defensively. He has had uh, small stretches where he has been all of a sudden had to be able to like kind of flash the bat a little bit more. I was encouraged to see him start hitting home runs in back-to-back series against the Marlins and the Phillies, but it's kind of like what exactly happened here, and they really need to figure out that third base spot because Beatty has a lot of talent. It's really obvious when he gets a hold of one. You're like, that guy has great power. Like, why he feels like he's being handicapped in some way. It's tough to watch, and I don't really know what they're going to do about Beatty. Um, the outfield, Brandon Nimmo obviously has center field under control. The left and right field positions are really interesting. So Jeff McNeil, I think, is we've seen McNeil kind of primarily move over into left fields, and that feels like the best spot for him. Even though he had those great throws from right fields in the Marlins series that cut down two batters, or sorry, two base runners. Uh, it feels like left field is the position for him, at least when you have a healthy Starling Marte, which has been sort of the rub because Starling Marte not really that healthy for the most part. That's been a tough go for him. Um, we have seen a lot of DJ Stewart in right field in lieu of Marte's injury. So DJ Stewart is obviously one of the other bright spots of the 2023 season. Discovering Stewart, who was a veteran journeyman outfielder, but kind of changed things up for himself, and he's been flashing a great bat. I'm really loving what I've seen from Stewart, to the point that it's fully expected that he's going to be on this team in 2024. In what role? Hard to say. I don't think as a starting outfielder, but you may potentially see Stewart move down into the DH spot to fill Daniel Vogelbach's position. So a platoon of Stewart and Vientos would actually be pretty good, I think, at least on paper. The other two pieces of this team, Rafael Ortega and Tim LaCastro, we will not be seeing any of them return. And Ortega, journeyman outfielder, same for LaCastro. Both these guys can't really hit, and they're just sort of outfield spots. So the Mets definitely in are going to be looking for a fourth outfielder, sort of fill the void that Tommy Pham left when they traded him off. And getting a player like Pham who can play all three outfield positions, not easy. There's certainly players out there, though, and they have to be looking at them um, in terms of a potential signing. So that'll be one thing to watch. So removing Ortega and Castro from this outfield, you're left with not a lot. If you're looking at this team, you're like, they have major issues. And in terms of their outfield depth, there's almost none. We know that, and that's going to be one thing that they have to work on. The other thing is the starting rotation. This is not really a rotation that I feel very confident with. Kodai Senga and Jose Quintana have been great. Quintana is kind of a question mark in terms of his health. Senga has been fantastic. There's no denying that I think Senga is going to be a heavy Cy Young favorite in 2024. Joey Lucchesi and David Pearson, also question marks. Same for Tyler McGill, same for Jose Budo. We've seen all four of these pitchers, Lucchesi, Peterson, McGill, and Budo, flash some success at different periods of time throughout the 2023 season. I have no clue if any of them are actually rotation material. I like Lucchesi a lot. I'm more inclined to believe him than let's say, David Peterson. David Peterson's just a huge question mark. I don't know what Peterson you're going to get. Same for Tyler McGill. Jose Budo has actually been really good this year, but Jose Budo, that seems more like it's a case of a pitcher coming in and familiarity not being great, and him kind of just getting by on that. That being said, congratulations for the success he has had in 2023 in his latest call up. But I've been surprised at like how much that rotation really just like emptied out. As soon as you remove Verlander and Scherzer, you're like, they don't have a lot behind them. And that was before they even got like I think Quintana back. That they were working on the trades of Scherzer and Verlander, and you're like, this is just not a lot of assets here, and there's not a lot of guys you can call up and fill that spot. It's a tough road. They're gonna have a huge a huge job here to sort of work in any kind of um, like semi decent starters here. You got to throw somebody in this group. This is besides Senga and Quintana, and of this group, I trust Senga probably. That's really it. I don't really know about Quintana. It's he's been really good in the second half of the season, but he is such a question mark in terms of his health that I have no idea what they're going to do with him. The bullpen also kind of a question mark. You don't really know. This entire roster is just a big question mark that you're looking at. Where you have certainly talent. I mean, Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo. These are three all star caliber players. But same with Kodai Senga, same with Edwin Diaz. I don't know about the rest of these guys. Francisco Alvarez has obviously flashed a lot of ability and talent early on. He is a rookie. We always have to remind ourselves that Alvarez is a rookie. He will have his slumps. Not everybody's Mike Trout in the rookie year, but it's a little disappointing that he has not really kind of blossomed into this superstar that a lot of people think he is. That being said, he has incredible power. I think is going to be an all star at some point, but Brett Beatty is a question mark. Ronnie Mauricio is a question mark. Mark Vientos is a question mark. There aren't any real sure ideas with this group, and I'm looking at it more and more, and I'm like, they have an enormous job to do in the 2023-2024 Raw season, and that is going to kind of conflict with a lot of their expectations because Steve Cohen wants this team to contend. He doesn't want them to be losing every season. He wants them to be winners. He's paying a lot for a quality product, which they have not delivered. And that's on the blame of a lot of people. Certainly, the players deserve their own share of the blame, but also for a front office that constructed a really poor team. And this is what we're looking at as an after image of what everyone was kind of expecting. Obviously, no one was really anticipating that Jeff McNeil would be the starting left fielder. They were expecting that Mark Canha would be starting left field. They weren't expecting Brett Beatty or Ronnie Mauricio to be struggling as much as they are. They were certainly were not expecting this starting rotation to be what they were going to be getting and what they were paying for, nor this bullpen. So it's been a year of starting to sort of reevaluate what this kind of roster is, and you're looking at it like this is a team that's going to win 75 games, maybe. I don't. If you're looking at it as they are, you can't leave a team like this and expect them um, to contend or even make a postseason. I don't think they could. A lot of things would have to break the right way. You have to have great years from guys like Marte and McNeil, guys that really need bounce back seasons. They would need to really perform at an all star level. Same for Beatty and Mauricio. These guys would have to take a giant step forward. Same for Mark Vientos. We have to take a giant step forward. Pete Alonso has to kind of get back to his 2022 season, not so much the 2023. I would prefer 2022 Alonso to 2023 Alonso. Edwin Diaz needs to come back fully healthy. I mean, there is major issues with this 2024 Mets team as it stands today. Um, and David Stearns has to kind of look at it and say, okay, what can we actually provide for this team? And Steve Cohen and him, they need to come up with a vision in terms of how this organization shakes out because they took a giant swing and whiffed badly, and that's just the stone cold truth of it. You really cannot look at this team and say they've missed. They spent a lot of money. None of it really worked out, and you have to kind of refocus and say, okay, what do we do now? We need to get back to the drawing board and say, and fill in these gaps, of which there are several. And if you cannot fill in these gaps, you're in for a rough stretch. I really can't say anything more than that, other than I think this team is going to be in for a rude awakening if they do not make major moves to sort of fill in these gaps because you cannot let this team go into the 2044 season with these players because it's going to be a lot of what we saw this year, which is a lot of losing streaks, players not playing up to their potential. The starting rotation really needs to be upgraded, and if you're bringing in players from Japan, like some people we know, signing free agents, whoever you need to do, obviously there's going to be more of a focus on spending correctly rather than spending all of the money at once, but you can't look at it and say like you need to invest some capital in this team, and I think Cohen will. I don't think there's any real problems with that he's not going to spend for this team. But looking at it, it's a tough stretch, and they don't have any real reinforcements to come up from their farm system. There's no trades to be made. There's nothing. They don't really have that many assets, so it's a tough build. You're gonna have to expect that this is probably not a team that's going to contend 2024. That being said, they don't need to be embarrassing, and I guess that's really the thing to say.
Thank you for listening to the Mike Spence podcast. Please be sure to follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Finally, please also follow the podcast Twitter, which is Mike Spence Pod, all one word. Appreciate your time and have a wonderful rest of your day or evening. Let's go, Mets.